Welcome back, everybody. It's the Dynasty Fantasy Football Podcast on FantasyPros. I'm your host, Scott Bogman. Follow me on the Twitter at Bogman Sports. I'm joined, as always, by Pat Fitzmaurice at Fitz_FF on the Twitter machine. And today on the show, we have Thor Nystrom at ThorKU on the Twitter to talk a little NFL draft here 6 days out. And just to remind you guys, we will be live on the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel during the first two nights of the NFL draft, starting day one at 7 p.m. Eastern and day two at 6 p.m. Eastern. Thor and Joe, I know, will be there. I'm sure, Pat, you'll show up at some point to come in. I know you have some articles to write. I'll probably make an appearance if that's okay, and talk to you guys during the draft. It's going to be a fun night, but we have Thor here. And Thor, you just put out your 500 rankings of the top NFL draft prospects with comps for everyone. You are a madman. It is insane. How much fun was it making the list versus how stressful? What is the stress versus fun level? Because, hey, look, it's your job. It beats digging ditches, but you got to get it done. It's a lot of work. So
yeah, it's a bit of both, but certainly a labor of love. And these are, with my job, it's college football, the other part of the year. So these are guys that, I've followed and covered since coming out of high school. So it's fun to be able to then, with their projections and everything in the spring, and then toss a comp on them and then stack the board. And, with that board, not only going 500 deep, but one of the things that I like about it, not only making it printable so people can bring it to their draft parties and cross off the names, but the way that I like to do it is with the picks that are actually in the draft, including the comp ones. You have 32 picks. Those are the 32 guys I got first round grades on. One of my random nitpicks about my industry are the guys that are like, oh, I have 15 guys with first round grades. It's like, no, you don't. The top 32 guys on your board are your first round grade guys. And then, and then all the way down, however many picks per round through the 257th is how many picks we have in this one are my draftable guys. They're broken up by the rounds like that. And then the rest of the guys, of course, the UDFAs. And like you mentioned, everyone has a comp, including the couple of special teamers on there. And I had the punter that I gave the best grade to that I ever had this year in the fourth round. But lots of different fun stuff in there, and lots of interesting comps that people should check out.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's always one of my favorite days of the year. The NFL draft, the first day of the NFL, the first day of college football, opening day in baseball. Yeah, these are just fun days if you're a sports fan. So we have Thor. We're going to put him on the hot seat and ask him some questions about this list and about the players. And Fitzy, you're first up. I will let you kick it off here.
Yeah, Thor, I have to start with a question about JJ Maccarthy. And you have been very much in on him for quite a while. I know how much college football you watch, and I know you didn't just fall for him during the pre-draft process. I also know that you happen to be a Minnesota Vikings fan. They need a quarterback, and there's been all sorts of speculation about the Vikings using their number 11 pick, their number 23 pick to move up and get Maccarthy. And I was pretty much telling Debro the other day, if the Vikings don't draft Maccarthy, I am going to have to drive up to Minneapolis at 100 miles an hour to do a wellness check on you. I'll be worried about you, quite frankly. What is it that's causing this man crush on JJ Maccarthy? What is it about him you like so much?
Yeah, it's the you have the athletic traits with the arm talent, and then a guy that you're going to project would keep getting better and better. And speaking of the athleticism with the arm talent, both of which were confirmed at the NFL Combine with data, the athleticism sixth best, three cone, regardless of position, at 17 pounds heavier than his Michigan bio, which also checked the box of anyone's size concerns if they still had any. And then the max velocity throw, 61 miles per hour, was one beneath the record for that, which was Josh Allen before Joe Milton, who maybe not the best quarterback prospect, but has an enormous arm. He matched it this year. JJ Maccarthy was 1 mile per hour beneath that. You have the traits to begin with, but they work together with one another on the field. You have guys, for instance, Joe Milton, don't mean to pick on him, but quarterback prospects like that, where they have the strong arm and they are athletic, but they absolutely categorically do not work together with one another on the field. A better example of this, or a higher rank example of this in the class, would be Michael Penix. Penix is as we saw at his pro day, is a good athlete, and he has a good arm. But you can see this in the data, or you can see this on his film. The more his feet are moving, the more his accuracy depreciates, does not throw on the run well at all. That is Maccarthy's best thing. And when you're talking about his projection to the next level, that's where it gets really cool. He loses zero accuracy on the move. He's an awesome improvisational guy. Last year, it was 72% and change completions in the aggregate against, by the way, easily the hardest strength of schedule that any of the top quarterbacks played, including the entire run through the CFP where Michigan won the national title. They would not have beaten Alabama unless JJ McCarthy had spurred the double-digit comeback in the second half against that nasty defense that Alabama had, and then Nick Saban subsequently retired after that. But you have that stuff going on the field. He takes his mechanics with him, keeps the eyes downfield, upper body cocked to throw while he's on the move, and keeps the throwing platform under him. He's also very good under pressure. Very, very good under pressure. One nuance about his film, I don't see this discussed as much. A lot of these quarterbacks that you see in college, you're watching the cut-ups, they fade away when they're about to get hit, or they brace for the hit. These different things that end up, their mechanics, they're not stepping into the throw all the way. And there are different things where they manifest in the accuracy not being quite as good on that throw. McCarthy will eat the shot every single time, step into the throw, look down the gun barrel to do that. It's a subtle thing like that. And it's like, when announcers will talk about it, be like, oh, the kid's so tough. But that's not the thing to focus on. The thing to focus on is the mechanics are there every single time, whether he's on the move, whether he's about to get hit, whatever. So the accuracy plays up each and every single time. Like I said, the athletic traits are there. The arm strength is there. Then you have an NFL sitting head coach that JJ won a national title for last year as a 20-year-old junior that believes he is the best player in this class. And of course, the rest of that Michigan staff that is now dotted around the NFL gushes about him. Ask any of those guys about JJ McCarthy. They will go on and on and on. Talk about him for even longer than I do. So you have all that different stuff, and it makes you pretty bullish about it. His teammates love him as well. You have the leadership, you have the intelligence, the intangibles with the on-field stuff. The people that nitpick him, it's just about counting stats, and they don't toss out any of the context for why that stuff occurred. The one thing that I could toss out, with that I always mention is in 7 of the 15 games last year, because Michigan was slapping opponents silly so much, JJ McCarthy took 0 fourth quarter snaps. In some of those games, he was taken out even before then. So he missed in the aggregate over 2 full games just because he was getting pulled early because they were annihilating teams by so much. And, he didn't have to prove it. He proved that he could come back on an awesome defense in the biggest spot possible, Alabama, on the sport's highest stage right before he came out. And of course, they won the national title then.
The sports. Go ahead, Boggs.
No, please go ahead.
I was just going to say the sports books have the over under on McCarthy's landing spot at 5.5. Do you think he goes top 5, Thor?
I would go under that. Yeah. I do think that there is a scenario that the QB4 could sneak past the wickets there, whether, to the Giants or whatever. But yeah, I'm going under with McCarthy on that. I think at the end of the day, yeah, you guys know how bullish I've been on that. There has been discussion of Washington. Nobody knows where Washington's going. The sportsbook odds with Washington have been all over the place this entire process. There's been rumors that New England is interested in him. Minnesota, my local team, could obviously trade up. There been the stuff of that all processed with either the Cardinals or the symmetry. How symmetrical would that be if JJ McCarthy's football father, Jim Harbaugh, got to select his next destination? And Mr. Harbaugh, man, you look around, you want to pick the best destination for JJ McCarthy in the NFL. How about a 12 personnel running team that has the best wide receiver in football and one of the better offensive play callers that we have in Kevin O'Connell, and a wide open quarterback spot? And by the way, a fan base that desperately, will embrace the quarterback, but also the winner thing, has never won a Super Bowl here. If you do that, if you do what JJ did last year, and by the way, going back to high school, was winning all the state titles. You look at his career record going back to high school, it is insane. Your eyes will bug out of your head. If whoever, quarterback come in, anyone wins a Super Bowl with the Vikings, you become Theo Epstein in Boston times like 100. Like, so, you are minted. They will build statues for you in this state.
Are you sure those Michigan coaches like JJ McCarthy more than you do? I think you might like him more. Thor, on your QB, if you're ready to move on from JJ McCarthy, that is, of course, but Bo Nix. Bo Nix is a polarizing prospect. I did a 7-round mock this week. I still had him going at 12 to the Broncos because I don't know who's trading back with the Broncos. You have to have 2 to dance. You know what I mean? It would cost a lot to get up there. I know he's probably not a first-round prospect, and I think you have him closer to the 3rd round, right? You have Spencer Rattler ahead of him. So just tell us why Bo Nix, and for fantasy, if he is drafted in the 1st round, I think you have to acknowledge that in terms of his value, right? Like, 1st-round quarterbacks are just looked different upon, by NFL GMs and the NFL in general. They always get, I mean, look at Sam Darnold still getting his 3rd shot, 4th shot, really, with your team, the Vikings this year, right? So if he goes in the 1st, he is more valuable, I think. But you like Spencer Rattler ahead of him. So kind of just fill us in about the Bo Nix, dislike, and is it more about disliking Bo Nix or liking Spencer Rattler?
Well, it's not Bo Nix dislike on my end. I see him accurately. I think
Okay.
and I rank him as a late 3rd rounder on my board. Bo Nix badly struggled at the beginning of his career at Auburn. The improvements you saw the last couple of years at Oregon, you give him, sure, you tip your hat to him, but the reasoning for that, it was the offensive system more than it was anything that Bo Nix did. The offensive system and the players around him juiced his accuracy, which I'll get into in a second. Also, with the yak yardage, helped to juice the counting stats. But the bigger point, it inoculated him from the acute issues that he had at Auburn very, very cleverly. At Auburn, the things in the Gus Malzahn system that he struggled with, it was sitting back in the pocket, having after the snap to go through the progressions and then make a decision with the bullets flying around him. And then the thing of throwing down the field in conjunction with all this. So sometimes you would see him get smoked from behind because you get preoccupied, bogged down with the decision making going across the thing. You would see when he had to throw down the field because there was more of that in the Malzahn offense. The balls would flutter on him more. It was less advantageous looks. He would struggle with that when it was a tighter cover, different stuff like that. See poor decisions. He badly struggled with that. He goes to Oregon. They put him in this wide open offense playing, by the way, last year was the, I mentioned with JJ McCarthy, the strength of the defense they were playing last year with McCarthy. It was the 38th average defensive strength. With Bo Nix in Oregon, it was the 80th. And Bo Nix was playing arguably with better supporting talent as well, certainly in a more advantageous system to accrue stats and empty calorie ones with Bo Nix. The system that he played at Oregon, it's the one where, so a spread, and then it was, you count the defensive numbers beforehand. And then where you have on the side of the field, the advantage with the numbers, it tells you where the ball is going. That's the reason why Bo Nix had the quickest time to release along with Austin Reed in this class. Everyone knows that Austin Reed coming out of WKU, that's a gimmicky air raid offense. You don't hear that as much about the Bo Nix thing. People just want to be like, oh, he has good accuracy. Does he? Is getting the decision prior to the snap and then being able to throw the ball within 6-7 yards of the line of scrimmage to a pre-delineated read? Does that mean that you're accurate? Especially when the cornerbacks across from Troy Franklin are going to be accountants in 2 years right after their collegiate career is done? I'm not sure about that. And that's what it was. When that downfield accuracy improved. But again, it was another thing where it was the pre-delineated thing when you knew you had the one-on-one shot in an extremely advantageous matchup. So he didn't have to make decisions after the snap. He didn't have to read the defense. So with the pass rush and everything like that, the mental processing with him, does this sound like something that translates to the NFL? That's like, in the NFL, do you make your decisions prior to the snap or do you make them afterwards? You can't build a system around that. I mentioned the yak yardage before. Obviously, you will not be able to leverage a guy like Troy Franklin and Bucky Irving and stuff like that facing off against guys that are clearly inferior to them athletically, different stuff like that. So you have all that different stuff. And then in addition to all this, I think that there are severe limitations as far as the ability with Bo Nix, and that has to do with throwing downfield. He does generate the tight spiral in the intermediate area, but there's a reason that he doesn't go downfield more and why he was so bad at it at Auburn, and a reason why in Mobile he wouldn't throw downfield either. It's because he's not great at it. The accuracy wavers, he has to throw the kitchen sink into it. The upper body mechanics are decent with Bo Nix. The lower body could go all over the place, and naturally he does not have an enormous arm. So he has to get everything into it. And because of that, even when he gets, a decent throw on it, the ball tends to go this way and that way, flutter towards the sideline or hang up there, catch a gust of wind. And so that's sort of the issue with it. In the NFL, having to do NFL concepts, I'm concerned about it. Could you build an offense around Bo Nix? I've heard that argument. Sure, you could do that. But the problem with that is the defense in the NFL, of course, the athletes are better. But they, if you're going to do the thing where it's like, we're going to try to tailor it around his strengths, it's going to be the short and intermediate stuff. And we're going to try to not to let him sit back in the pocket quite as much. You're taking away the explosive element of your offense and then going up against far superior athletes where they are as good as the skill guys around there. That guy is not a first round pick. He's also at an elevated age in addition to all this different stuff. So I actually think I have seen him totally fairly in ranking him as a third round prospect. I would absolutely take Spencer Rattler over him, a guy who was in a nightmare situation in a far superior conference at South Carolina and was a better recruit coming out. And by the way, had a better season, initially redshirt freshman season at Oklahoma. People were talking about him as a number one overall player in the draft, and we're evoking like a pint-sized Pat Mahomes with him. I would way rather roll the dice on him because at least if he hits, you have traits that are more like an NFL starter, where it will threaten NFL defenses as opposed to with Bo Nix. I just do not
Bo
see
Nix
him
the
ever.
Next Kenny Pickett?
I think you could. Yeah. And by the way, that's on the good side of it, I think.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
I compare Bo Nix to Matt Corral. Not the off-field types, but just as the on-field stuff, coming out but yeah, the Kenny Pickett, I think, is a decent one as well. Kenny Pickett, a guy that was very much helped, Bogman, to your point, helped by the circumstances around him. You had Jordan Addison there. And then the offensive system was very clever that last season, in addition to Addison, where they did this levels passing thing. And so they would terrify the defense with all these short passes on the outside with the spread thing, Addison in particular, but they had a couple other dudes that would threaten you there. And then they would start to go down the field a bit when the defense would have to start bringing people up, because Pitt that year, they love to do the thing of having the multiple guys out there, have the receiver block out. So they would just steal free yardage from you. Again, very similar to this thing where it was juicing Pickett's both his accuracy percentage while keeping him away from the pass rush, while giving him free yardage from the yak of a very good NFL receiver, Jordan Addison in that case, Troy Franklin in Bo Nix's. So evoking that, I think, is beyond fair. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talk about first round QB bust, and my head always goes to Kenny Pickett because I'm a Steelers fan. So I wanted Malik that year, and Malik fell to the third. But listen, I know Fitz has a running back question here for you, but I got to tell you guys about the Game Time app before. I was having a tough time finding World Series tickets in November, and I jumped on the Game Time app and bought them in a snap. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. I bought tickets this weekend through Game Time to go to the Astros game, and they have the views from all the seats. And I knew I was getting the lowest price because of the Game Time guarantee. The Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code FANTASYPROS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code FANTASYPROS, FANTSYPROS, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Fitzy, I know you have a big running back question for Thor. Let's hear it.
I do. Thor, one of the guys I'm having trouble getting a handle on is Jaylen Wright, just because I think it's because he plays in that gimmicky Josh Heupel offense, and I never know how to assess guys coming out of that. But, I mean, he's a speedy, big play guy coming from Tennessee, so of course you're getting Alvin Kamara comparisons. You just came out with the Thor 500. Is Kamara your comp for Jaylen Wright, or did you have someone else?
No, it's not. I don't like the Kamara. That one's like the helmet comp, I feel like, and Kamara, like he's more the movement, like the east west one, and it's really hard to get your hands on. Whereas Jaylen Wright, he's the shot put dude. Like he is looking for that crease, and then he is the crazy burner. So I think that's the difference. That he is a big play guy, and he does have receiving utility. And by the way, one thing people don't talk about him enough, he is a pretty dang good pass blocker, which needs to be mentioned as well. In college, he was in the initially was at Tennessee and Heupel. They like to do the running back rotation, which last year Jaylen Wright then surged to the top of that. But for these reasons, he got less touches in college, which is a good thing for the NFL projection. But you also got to see a little bit less of him. But yeah, as far as the game, the guy that I compare him to, like his running style, I think you could evoke a guy like Tevin Coleman, you know, as that straight line, like I am looking to hit that home run and just sprint and erase angles with the speed. But the guy that I went with, because it evoked a little bit more the also the receiving element and a current dude that doing stuff, Tony Pollard, I thought hit that a little bit more, similar athletic profile, similar body type, and then the two-way game with that. But speaking to the speed, you know, you seen the 4.3 speed in Indianapolis, which confirmed it. But on the field with the GPS, 22.2 miles per hour on one run last year, which was the fastest of any FBS running back on any run last year tracked. He was a former Feldman freak lister before he had even broken out. This is going back several years. We knew this kid was a freak athlete. And then last year, during the breakout, 35 carries of 10 plus yards on only 136 attempts. That was more than one quarter of his attempts. Fitzy, you mentioned the gimmicky offense, and that needs to be mentioned with any Tennessee skill guy. Heupel is a very, very clever offensive play caller, but they also do that spread thing. And speaking of the pre-delineated reads, you know, with the quarterback, we were talking about this with Hendon Hooker last year. He does the Heupel cuts the field in half for them and everything like that. But with the running backs, this has the effect of thinning out the box for them, which of course was advantageous for Jaylen Wright's game. The thing that, you know, so you have to make some situational assumptions vis-a-vis that, because of course in the NFL, he's going to be facing some more guys in the box. He's going to be a little bit more conventional with that. One thing that makes me a bit more bullish about the projection to that is he does break tackles. And like I said, you also have the receiving. He has shown aptitude with that. In addition, the underrated pass blocking element of his game. So you know he's going to be able to stay on the field for that. You get the big play stuff. But as far as the tackle breaking and the different stuff like that, last year his elusive rating 132.2. Absolutely sterling. You can't put that thing on thin boxes, right? Like the thin boxes thing probably helped that first stat I was saying with the over one quarter of the 10 plus yard thing. But the elusive rating, he is breaking tackles and everything like that. So I do like his game. And I'm bullish on him. 5'10.5", 210. So he's at the threshold size, 98th percentile athlete. I rank him as RB2 in this class and as a early to mid third round type prospect.
I love it. Yeah, Jaylen Wright is going to be a lot of fun to watch at the next level. Another guy that I know you like is Marshawn Lloyd, and I like Marshawn Lloyd a lot. It maybe kicks it out a little bit. He had some fumble issues, but he's got burst. He can make a guy miss. I just love watching him play. I will say I'm a little lower on him than you are because of his injury history. Tore his knee in 2020, missed some time last year as well. I think he had a high school injury, if I'm remembering that correctly. So he's been banged up a little bit. And this question isn't so much about Marshawn Lloyd, but it is about how do you mitigate guys that have had injuries at this position, at running back, coming in to the NFL? Do you kind of take it with a grain of salt more at this position because these guys get hurt? It's what, running backs get hit more than anybody else. And they're taking those big shots too. Is it just not as much a factor when you're grading players at this position because it is such a brutal position and they all get hurt eventually?
No, it's 1,000% context dependent, right? Case by case for sure. You have to, all data you have to bake in on every evaluation, and certainly the medical stuff is one of those things. The thing that I lament about, doing it from my angle of it is I get a metric ton of data, way more than I would have doing this like 20 years ago. But
Of course.
the one black box for me is what you're hitting on, is the totality of the medical profile, right? Like
Mhm.
I don't get to see behind that door. And there's a couple guys in this class where their ranking would be different for me 1,000%, either up or down, if I knew what the team's the medical personnel had said about that kid's medicals after they had evaluated him. One of them is Latu. Latu would be my edge one if I knew
Yeah.
that they have been, the medical personnel. There's not the elevated current, injury
And
reoccurrence
if you're not
or.
familiar with Latu's story, he medically retired and came back and then played,
And
and he
Eric All
was
is another one.
unbelievable. So,
For sure. Yeah. And as far as Lloyd, though, I like the way that you set that up because, going beyond the injury thing, for me with evaluations, it's a band of outcomes thing. And that's how I try to see it. And maybe that's, I'm a little bit different in that than with some other people. And I try to do the rankings more like that, as opposed to, like, look, I do the 500 player big board, and you're basically, in so doing, you're making 500 predictions on unknowable outcomes in advance, right? And there's different ways to do that. And I think a lot of people that are doing it, they look at they're looking at the same stuff I am, the film and the data, different stuff. But a lot of people, they want to have the certainty of, this is what this guy will be, right? Like, this
sure.
is, whatever. I try to look at it as the range of outcome. And then, after I'm done with my work on them, what is the range of outcome? What would they be at the top? What would they be at the bottom? And then what are the odds in between, right? And that's why you get so much data, is like, some of the injury stuff or the character stuff or different things like this are the things that could elevate the percentage odds that it looks more towards the other end of the polarity, the bottom end of their projection. I bring all this stuff up. Marshawn Lloyd is a great example of this. And I try to set my write-up of him up like this to sort of display this for people on both sides. Debro, our friend and colleague, I think I have a really sort of bullish-ish ranking on Marshawn Lloyd compared to people out there, or, like a solid one. I rank him RB4 in the class. The last couple of months, I've had to listen to Debro telling me I rank him too low because Debro is like, he is the best running back in the class. Debro has had Marshawn Lloyd as RB1 since the very beginning. And the thing that I talk about in my write-up is, in a decade from now, 1,000%, you could, at that time, Marshawn Lloyd could be the best
Sure.
running back from this class, got most rushing yards, yada yada. But also, at that time, Marshawn Lloyd could absolutely be outside the top 10. You have the thing with the injuries. There's other contextual things as well beyond that, vis-a-vis his game, that could lead to the thing going the other way. That there are aspects of his game that I love. I understand what Debro is seeing. I understand why
Yeah.
he's bullish. He has the make you miss. I love the slashing element of his game, the agility, the power. The direction change is great. And after the direction change, he returns to top gear very quickly. He runs mean. I laugh because we were talking to him in Mobile, asking him about that. He's like, that's what we do in Delaware. We have to come out and, because the kid's from Delaware. He's like, we got to, show people what Delaware is about. He has the extremely thick lower half, and you can see that the way that he runs. Snaps the arm tackles. He's a fighter. And then he has the big play wheels with the 4.4. Like all that stuff. I like his sense for cutback lanes as well. But then the on the other side of it, like in sort of the middle thing, the passing game stuff, totally unknown. At both the USCs he went to, he just wasn't used as much as a receiver. And I'm pretty sure he's a terrible pass blocker because he was literally never used at that. Even though he was used sporadically as a receiver, you'd think if he could pass block at all, they would have had him out there a little bit for teams that did throw the ball. And then the areas of concern with him going all the way to the other end. He only touched the ball 325 times in college. Some of that had to do with the injury, but even when he was healthy, they always had a second guy with him, or he was a second guy. So it's, again, like they took him off the field always on passing down. So it's like, that could be it right there. He also would get nicked up a lot. You had that thing. And then to the big play thing, for instance, last year at USC, he was a big play machine. Look at his yards per carry. Look at the 10 plus, the 20 plus, yada, yada. But he was bouncing it outside a whole heck of a lot on non-outside design bounce concepts. He wants to hit the home run, even though he has the juice or to get the tough yards. Like you see that on certain times where he's, again, fighting for the extra yards on those reps. I love to see that. But on too many of them, he is looking to, okay, I'm going around the outside, yada, yada. And then he could have had 3, 4, 5 yards by following the concept and fighting for it. But instead, I want to try to hit another dinger. And if that inclination follows him to the NFL, it's not going to work out like it did against the crappy defenses that the Trojans were facing last year in the Pac-12. So I can say that. So it creates this band of outcomes for Marshawn Lloyd. And because of that band of outcomes, again, recognizing the potential on the high end, but then also the risk of it, that's why I ended up putting him at RB4, whether that upsets Debro or not.
I understand that. Pat, I know you have another running back to ask Thor about here.
Yeah, Thor, Tyrone Tracy. I know you're a fan and you have him well inside your top 10. And like I watch a lot of Big Ten football, but I tried not to expose my eyeballs to too much Purdue last year because they were so wretched. So I don't know, maybe for me it was kind of hiding in plain sight, but give me the elevator pitch on Tyrone Tracy and why you like him so much.
Tyrone Tracy, wide receiver in a previous life at the University of Iowa, obviously is school near and dear to my heart. And obviously
they have wide receivers
that is risk averse to forward passing. And so because of that, not only was Tyrone Tracy not used a bunch, it seems like his development never really got there. The athleticism was always very much apparent with Tyrone Tracy whenever he got the ball. But he was always a super duper raw route runner. And again, you didn't even get to see many opportunities with it because of the way that they throw the ball. Iowa had tried to convince him to move to running back. He was reticent to do so well in Iowa City. He ends up transferring to Purdue because of some of the frustrations with all this stuff and the passing offense stuff. He goes to Purdue. They effectively convince him to move to running back. It was last year, ironically, his last year in college on this horrific Purdue team that had nothing going for them. They had this new coaching staff. They had all kinds of problems throwing the ball. And they had a different running back that was their starting running back because he's this young kid. Devin Maccarthy was going to be around for a couple more years. The new coaching staff, that's who you're going to start. That Tyrone Tracy broke out. They had to get him on the field because he was doing so good and accrued these explosive runs behind a terrible offensive line, facing good defenses week in and week out. Accruing explosive runs at a rate that he had no business doing. I like Tracy as the athlete at Iowa, and I saw his numbers and was sort of from afar during the fall and stuff like that. But when I turned on his tape, I wasn't, I knew that the explosive runs were coming, but the rest of it, I just expected, yada, yada. Like I thought it was like the skill set of the kick returner guy, the rest of it. I hadn't seen as much of Purdue live. So when you're watching the cut up, I went in with open eyes, not knowing what to expect, but not expecting a ton. that's where he really opened my eyes. So I ended up comping him to Miles Sanders. I put in my write-up that he's a bouncy, juiced up, wide base slasher with better vision and instincts than expected, runs with tempo and has a knack for timing his cutbacks to free himself into open grass. And then that's when the 4.48 wheels come into play. That is why he was accruing all those explosive runs. So even when he's in the traffic, like he does the cutbacks, they're very violent. So even, it's like the guy's like, oh, I got you dead to rights. And then he does like the Frogger thing. He's like, no, you don't. And then, so he can get out really quick. And when he gets out into the second level, it's the same thing where there can be multiple guys around him. And all of a sudden he does the Frogger thing. And it's like, uh-oh, there's nobody in front of him now. And bye-bye. And so that's when he becomes the real problem, because now he can run as fast as the defensive backs. And he also, again, at the size at 5'11", 209, he has decent size, and he will run through the arm tackles as well. The elusive rating for him was also incredible last year. So you have all that different stuff. Last year, the elusive rating is 163.5. Speaking of eye-popping, 4.44 yards after contact per attempt last year. Both of those, by the way, were the tops of my top 30 ranked running backs on my board. You're talking about a guy that just started playing running back. So I think the potential is there, even at the elevated age. He was in college for 6 years. So I think some people may negate him because of that, but realize that what he was doing last year, and when you turn on the tape and realize that Purdue team was so dead end, what he was doing behind that offensive line against the defensive fronts that he was facing, you have to realize the context of it makes it even more impressive, projecting it to that new position. He's early on the developmental curve with it. You're only looking with running backs with me for their value during their rookie contract. Because the way that I see it, I would never give a running back a second contract anyway. I think Tyrone Tracy is going to give you a pretty dang good amount of value for the draft slot he is going to go in, during those first 5 years of his career. The other thing is he is going to be a very good kick returner, I believe, with those new rules, because of that skill set he has of now you see me, now you don't, that violent cut over and then hit the jet thing. So those are, and Purdue used him at the return last year, took one to the house. I think he's going to be taking a couple to the house in the NFL as well.
In my mock, I put him on Washington, and I would love to see him fit there with Cliff Kingsbury. Austin Eckler, how much time does he have left? Who knows?
Not long.
But I love Brian Robinson, but I think Tyrone Tracy would fit better in Washington. I know Fitz has a question about wide receivers here, but before we get to that, by now, most of you have probably heard of Reality Sports Online, the powerful fantasy sports platform where owners get to build and manage their fantasy team like an NFL general manager. But the question is, have you tried it? It's time to go see what all the buzz in the dynasty community is about. Free agency, multi-year contracts, a rookie draft, multi-team trades, franchise tags, contract extensions, first-round rookie options, automated contract and salary cap functionality, and much, much more. Think it sounds complicated? It's not. The best thing about Reality Sports Online Fantasy Front Office is that it doesn't take any more time than a standard league. It just requires more strategy. Think you're among the fantasy elite? Well, this is a platform to test your mettle. Still not sure? You can test your general manager skills for free, FREE, in a mock free agency auction. If you like what you see, use the promo code FantasyPros to receive a 10% discount on your team or league today. That's promo code FantasyPros to receive a 10% discount on your team or league today. Fantasy just got real at realitysportsonline.com. All right, Fitzy, ask Thor about these top three guys here.
Yeah, Thor, basically just how do you order the big three, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Nabers, Rome Odunze, and how close together are these guys for you? Are there any significant gaps between any of them?
Yeah, so look, all three of them, a lot of the receiving class over the last decade, all three of those guys, a lot of those classes, they would have been the wide receiver ones of them. Last year, Odunze could have come out in that class, and we know this, he would have been during that run of the receivers that went in the 20s right away. But that was that version of Odunze. He got he took the big time leap this year. He would have gone way up in last year's class. He would have been top 10 pick. This year, so the receivers this year, I got Harrison, wide receiver 1. He's number 4 overall on my board. I got Nabers, wide receiver 2, number 5 overall on my board. And I have Odunze wide receiver 3 at number 7 overall on my board. And I like the prospects here in the top 10, 12, 15 of this draft. That is how good those top 3 guys are. The film, the profiles, the analytics on them, like anything that you want to look at with those guys are all, you can compare them against the top receiving prospects that have come out. Marvin Harrison, though, you have to put him, in my opinion, wide receiver 1, even though Nabers is probably maybe more fun to watch just because he's so unique in the way that he plays and the movement skills and the way that he can sometimes embarrass defensive backs who just because he can discombobulate them and then he could tie them into knots like a cartoon. That stuff's fun. But Harrison, with the fully fleshed out game in that physical package, which I think about as NFL scouts having built in Madden, the create a player. And then the kid was tutored by one of the tacticians at the position that we have ever seen. His father only became a Hall of Famer because of the attention to detail, to the finer points. And you see that all over Marvin Jr.'s game. And the point I made about Marvin Jr. in my write-up is a lot of times when we see these guys with the ridiculous physical dimensions at that position that are so physically gifted, you do not see the refinement of those aspects, the technique, the attention to detail, the release packages, the efficiency of footwork into and out of route breaks, the care that they take to put doubt into the head of the defensive backs, how quickly they decipher the coverage's intentions, and then they know what to do immediately. That you do with Marvin Harrison Jr. It's just when he was a kid, Marvin Sr., it was in the NFL, and they were going over all this different stuff. He got an education that no other receiving prospect, you wouldn't be able to pay for something like that. It was like the book of secrets that this kid was just given from an early age. It just so happened that he got all the physical gifts that his father could only dream about, including the long arms and the ball skills. Marvin Jr. is maniacal about this modified jugs machine as well. He doesn't drop balls as well. Wins at all 3 levels. It's single coverage. He was 100th percentile receiving grade last season or past couple of years. I'm sorry, but then double teams as well. Anecdotally, destroys them as well. But Matt Harmon, if you want to go by the data, reception perception is a tremendous site. Matt does a great job. Matt Harmon said that during his time charting the receivers, that no receiver he had ever charted had been double teamed as much by the opposition as Marvin Harrison Jr. And Marvin Harrison Jr., in addition to that, smashed the success rate record for charting against double coverage. So it's just a different sort of a thing. That's why you had to put him there. But Nabers is, in his own way, is a different sort of a thing with the movement and the different and being able to win at all 3 levels, but also the yak that you get from him and stuff like that. Yeah.
Speed with everything. So
electricity with Nabers. It's all about I call him the Nikola Tesla of receivers because it's just inexhaustible electricity with Mr. Nabers.
Man, this wide receiver. Go ahead, please.
It is just an amazing class, and we're going to have a couple of pretty good day 2 guys. Ricky Pearsall and Roman Wilson. I know you like both of them. Quick overview of their games.
Yeah, with Pearsall, he's a very, very good route runner. And you saw this going back to Arizona State when he was the wide receiver for Jaden Daniels, going to go in the top 3 in this one. And then everyone transferred out of Arizona State after 2021 because there was a scandal with Herm Edwards. And Pearsall ended up at Florida, where then he immediately became the wide receiver 1 for Anthony Richardson and then subsequently Graham Mertz. But the thing that led the foot for Pearsall, firstly, was the route running. And then Pearsall has the most ridiculous set of hands on him that you'll see.
Unbelievable catches.
Unbelievable.
Just so many of them.
Unbelievable. Like, it goes without saying that, like the easy stuff, he doesn't flub that. But the highlight reel catch, and most people that are listening to this have probably seen them. But if you haven't, look up Ricky Pearsall's highlight reel catches, and in particular the catch against Charlotte, which is outside of the Justin Jefferson and the Odell Beckham. and it might even be, you could
You could put it in
that,
there, I
because
think.
he also got crushed on it as well,
Yeah.
and somehow held on to the ball. It defied everything that you think you understand about
Biggs
holding on
is
to
still
a
the
ball.
best I've ever seen, but Pearsall is so close.
Yeah, so you have the hands and crazy hands, and then in addition to all that stuff, he went to the Senior Bowl. He was great there, proved the concept of all that stuff, and then the athletic testing at the combine, that was the real surprise. How well he tested. He jumped out of the building. The 40 was great. Everything, like, tested as a 99th percentile athlete. I don't know what question you could have about Ricky Pearsall at this time, outside of the viability of the accuracy of the quarterbacks he played with the last 3 years. That's really about it. Ricky Pearsall, for me, I put him as a late first round pick. I expect him in the draft to probably go very early on Friday, but for me, late first rounder.
All right, let's fight, Thor. You've got Xavier Worthy at 7. I'm not gonna hate that. There's so many good wide receivers in this class, but you have my boy Adonai Mitchell at 13. I see him in a lot of mocks go, to the Bills a lot late, in the first or somewhere early in the second. Him and Worthy kind of flip.
I mean, Adam Schefter thinks he's going to be a first rounder. Like he thinks he's a solid first rounder.
There's a lot. I know he's a tough nut to crack here, because there is such good and there's some bad in there as well. He's had some injuries as well. He's a little slight, so I understand the negatives. You got him in a 3rd round pick, Thor. I mean, come on, baby. What can I do to get you to raise my guy Adonai here? Anything?
Nothing. That's how I see him. My draft rankings, they're just my opinion after doing the work.
I know.
Not predictions of where they're going to go in the draft. I see him as the inverse of most people, and I think that a team would be making a mistake of taking him in the first round. It's funny, the betting market has not reacted as strong to a guy that they've dropped a draft slot prop on that I can remember in recent years. They dropped Adonai Mitchell at 16.5. Within 48 hours, it had been bet up to 27.5. You do not see movement like that in the market. Insane. We'll end up seeing if he does go at the end of the first round, or if he slips into the second. Of course he's going to go higher than I have him. I mean, the guy runs 4.3 in an enormous package. If I was a GM, I would not take him until the 3rd round, especially in this receiving class. I do not see the potential that other people see with him. Like the narrative that you hear with AD, it's like they try to explain away the lack of production, the inconsistency, and everything throughout his entire career, right? And the narrative is all around the physical package. Obviously, he is big. He had the 9.9 RAS. He has the 4.3 wheels, and then you see the highlight reel catches. Well, and Bogman, you'll appreciate this as a baseball aficionado. What Adonai Mitchell is, the comp for him, it's Dave Kingman. It's either you get a dinger or you get, way more often, you get strikeouts. It's the downfield thing that when he has a big game, which last year he had 3 of them, as you know, as a Texas fan, 3 games where he went over 100 yards. 2 of those times, I believe it was over 140. In the other ones, what was it, 8 or so, where it was under 30? It's either you and the games where it was over the 100, and particularly the 2 where it was over 140. It's all because it's the downfield, the big. It's because he's getting a couple dingers in a game. He doesn't give you any efficiency whatsoever, which is for a couple different reasons. Number one, he is disinterested on route concepts that go the other way. That's something that people is a popular one that has come up recently, but that's absolutely true. But the other thing is he does not change directions very well. He also does not seem like a guy who has an attention for detail beyond that. But like, I'm just talking about the athletic profile. It is the north-south thing in particular. But the loafing thing, it doesn't project well as a guy that at the next level is going to start doing the attention to detail of the route running nuance that will start to give you the efficiency where you start throwing the ball that way. The other thing is with the deep speed thing, and I think this is why you don't get more big plays out of Adonai Mitchell in more games. you did have the 3-3 or whatever at the combine. Take a look at the 10-yard split on that. It's very interesting. His 10-yard split was the same as receivers that were running in the 4.5s. It's an all-time build-up speed dude. So when he, gets that runway in front of him, once he gets going, yes, he's as fast as anybody. And you have to respect that because he will make the play downfield. And that's when get those big flashy plays that everybody likes, different stuff like that. But it takes a little bit, right? Like, so you,
sure.
you
he
have
doesn't
that
create
issue with this game. That's the thing. The one thing I'll give him, like, he gives you a little bit of value just from the fact that the defense has to keep the safety high on that side, which Bogman, I think this too from watching Texas. That helped out Mr. Worthy. That helped out Sanders. That helped out Mr. Whittington. I will give him the benefit of the, say that there is a value to that. I see him as, again, inverted from other people where they're like, oh, he has this, he could be a superstar wide receiver 1 in the NFL. You just have to shoulder some risk. I don't think so. For me, he is low ceiling, high floor. He is your prototypical pop the top wide receiver 2 who will, it's a road to nowhere thinking that guy will become an NFL superstar wide receiver.
Is there a spot that he can land that you think will maximize his potential?
Well, like I just think he's the wide receiver 2 guy. So like anyone that needs the downtown fella of the, for instance, the Bills, it didn't Gabe Davis left, whatever. They're looking for receivers. If they don't get one early on I would advocate strongly that the Bills do not use a first-round pick on A.D. Mitchell. There's several receivers that I would prefer instead. But like, if A.D. Mitchell does drop, and there are more personality, and he left Georgia, and I'm not going to get into all that. And Bob McGinn's piece had a thing with a scout saying stuff that there's other stuff. I'm not going to get into all that stuff. But if he ends up falling for other stuff where it's like deeper, whatever. And some teams feel like you get them on a little bit of a discount. Maybe the Bills just, go a different way in the first round. That could be a team you could, that thing. Maybe the Chiefs, if he falls further on. For me, I can't use a first round pick on a guy like that with that kind of a profile. Less than 2 yards per out run, I believe, every single college season. Georgia did not seem overly upset when A.D. Mitchell walked out the door.
Georgia had a bunch of superstars. I mean, I'm not going to make every excuse
and Marcus Rosemy, Jack Saint, and
Lad McConkey and Brock Bowers, they're not good, right? So look,
you couldn't use a 6'2" guy with a 9.99.
I'm going to defend my Texas guy, of course, here, Thor.
Yeah,
but I
1.7 yard per out run.
Maybe he's overrated, but I do think that a lot of the stuff is teachable. The one thing that I'll give you
is change of direction teachable. Is full effort on every snap teachable?
Yes, full effort is. The hands.
I actually don't think it is.
The slight frame is. Well, I mean. If you want to, when you get to the next level and you realize you have to do everything you can to make it, you either do or you don't. So it's either you're done real quick or you're maxing out real quick. It's one of the two. So NFL, we know Jerry Glanville told us it stands for not for long. If you ain't trying your hardest here, we all know that. And if you guys have got any dynasty drafts on the horizon or want to see how the latest free agency moves in the NFL draft affect fantasy football drafts, our mock draft simulator tool is open at fantasypros.com/simulator. It's a fast and free way to practice for any kind of draft, including dynasty startup drafts and rookie drafts. Again, that is fantasypros.com/simulator. I got another wide receiver one here for you, Thor. You're high on Leggette, Baker, Malik Washington. You're low on Walker and Corley. This question is less about the prospects themselves, and it's more about landing spot in the NFL draft. How much, for fantasy purposes, not for, obviously you've done your ranking. These are like you've said before, these are the way you see the guys. This is where you would draft them all the way down. But when we get to landing spots, when we're looking for fantasy, how important is it for that? Because this is a deep class. You mentioned it before. Adonai Mitchell is 13. I know you don't like him, but he wouldn't have been 13 last year. It would have been like 6 or something. Because last year's class is not what this year's class is.
For sure.
But with a class this big, how much is landing spot going to affect guys, in this range, in that kind of second, third, fourth tier of these wide receivers? They're still really good, but they're going in the fourth, they're going in the fifth because this class is deep.
It's way more important on the other side of it than I think people give credit for. You know, it's one of those things. Bogman, you'll appreciate this again as a baseball guy. Talked to a buddy of mine that did the chipped in with the baseball prospectus top 101 prospects you see at the end of that guide that they do years ago about this when we were talking about his job against my job. And like was talking about like, I was like, man, your job super duper hard. Like I can't imagine, like how difficult that is. Like, watching kids from the Dominican or like high school kids, and then, or like lower levels of the minors, and then having to, sort of
There's
stack the
so
board,
many of
like
them.
with that. Yeah. Like, and project them out years and years and years. And he goes, bro, your job's way harder. He goes, baseball is a individual sport masquerading as a team sport, whereas football, you cannot unspool one person from the other on all these different play-by-play basis. And it's so true. And as far as the landing spots go, it's all over the place, right? Like, you need to find a spot where you can even get on the field. Then you need to find a coach that will use you correctly, that knows your game. In addition to that, so you have all that different stuff, with the
and God forbid you're drafted by one coach and he gets fired, and the next year you have a whole nother coach who didn't draft you and is not beholden to you in your draft capital. So yeah,
1000%.
It is tougher.
Yeah, and any of these different guys, like, your game can play up. Absolutely, you find that perfect situation. I mean, like Adonai Mitchell, right? Like, we were just talking about him. Obviously, I'm lower on him than most, but like, let's say that he goes to, let's say, the Chiefs, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Now you are in. Adonai Mitchell is in the best situation he ever could have hoped for. They have the intermediate guys already, and you have one of the better downfield passers that we have, or the Buffalo Bills with a bazooka armed dude on a team that needs to replace their downfield guy. And Adonai Mitchell, like, coming out, like, I see him more or better than I saw Gabe Davis coming out of UCF, for instance. And these guys are the same. The guys that you tossed out, they're guys that have strengths and weaknesses, and depending on the opportunity there for them, and then the way that the coaches use them. Like, Leggette is the very interesting dimensions. He's 6'1", 221. He also has the 9'9" RAS. He's also the north-south guy, where the thing that you question, it's the east-west stuff, and then the entire nuance of it. But what I really like, it's that he can take the fastball of the north-south, and then he's really good at slamming on the brakes and coming back. And slamming on the brake, it gives him enough at the route break where, because of that, the change of direction's not incredible with him, but he at least can stop real quick based on how fast he's moving at his size. Is like the one thing he's like good at, sort of, with that. And he's got pretty good ball skills as well. If you use that guy correctly, like, if you try to overextend him, that's where you might get into issues. But if you use that guy correctly as your wide receiver too, you have another guy on the other side where the defense has to give their coverage resources. And now Xavier Leggette can just do the stuff that he is good at, occasionally go downtown. Otherwise, he's going to do the comeback thing. Now he's good. Javon Baker, I think, is probably the best example of this, of needs to find the right situation, both because of the game, but also because of his disposition. Javon Baker ardently believes, no BS, that he is the best wide receiver in this class, and he does not understand why other people don't see it his way. And he plays like that. Like, they almost upset Oklahoma this past year, and Javon Baker
pulling for it.
Javon Baker got a lot of BS for he had a long touchdown. He blew a kiss at the Oklahoma sideline. He got a lot of crap for that. He got chewed up by the coaches. A lot of people have brought this up, and in conjunction with the personnel. What they don't bring up is that was right before halftime, responding to an Oklahoma touchdown. It allowed UCF to stay in that game. UCF was in it until the very end. They would have forced overtime if they had gotten a 2-point conversion at the end. And the reason was because Javon Baker, he was going off in that game. So you saw different stuff like that, but he is that alpha type, Stephon Diggs type personality. And Stephon Diggs, he fell down the board, but he found the correct situation and it played up, right? And then when it's playing up, no one talks about Stephon Diggs' personality. When things aren't going as well, they always bring up his personality. It will be the same thing with Javon Baker. If he gets into a bad situation right away, that's where his career doesn't go as well. if he gets into the right one, it doesn't matter where he gets drafted. It could be the same thing, him falling down like Stephon Diggs did. But if he gets into the right situation, that is where he could potentially become not only a guy that contributes to an offense, but a guy that could be a star at the NFL level. And no one's going to talk about his personality at that point.
Yeah,
Thor,
I mean, I
ahead,
was just gonna say it was kind of like the helmet scouting, but Gabe Davis. You remind me so much of Gabe Davis, but he catches the ball. That's the difference. You know what I mean? Like Gabe Davis can get open, but he only caught the ball against my Steelers for those 2 90-yard touchdowns, right? Like, so it's Javon Baker is Gabe Davis that could catch, probably way better. I'm very simplifying it and doing the helmet scouting deal, but I definitely see him as a fun, big play type of guy. And I kind of want to see him in New England just to give them some speed, for God's sake. You know, they're going to have a new QB too. Just, I mean, you can't go with Juju and KJ Osborne and, Pop Doug, like all the slowest wide receivers in the NFL. You got to give that team some speed. So I want to see him in many places, but I just want to see New England get some speed. So sorry, Fitzy, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, Thor, I mean, Bogman just laid out such an interesting Star Wars cantina of receivers there with Xavier Leggette, Malik Washington. Those guys are like one-year wonders. Baker, who you just talked about. Tez Walker, who's got this dreamy size speed combo, but super raw. Malachi Corley, the crazy after the catch guy. I know Boggs has to sneak in a tight end question, so I'm just going to limit you to a name here. But if all those guys hit like their top 1 percentile outcomes and they all just totally maximize their ability, who has the best career of those guys?
I love this question.
I'll say Javon Baker.
Fair.
Baker's your man.
I had a feeling that was going to be the answer, but I totally get it.
He's a stud. He's going to be so much fun. So my last tight end question. We all know Bowers is unbelievable. He's, I keep seeing these, where he slips to Cincinnati at 18. I'm like, he is not falling to Cincinnati. What are we talking about? I think he goes in the top 10. But if not, he's definitely going in the top 15. I don't think he slips past Indianapolis at 15. So we all know about Brock Bowers. I don't really want to talk about Brock Bowers. Let's talk about Sanat and all who you have ahead of my guy, JT Sanders. And I'm not going to fight for my Texas guy here, but I do want to know, because tight end is such a different position when you're looking at it based on, an overall prospect, because Tip Ryman's not going to be a fantasy option. He's a blocking tight end. So, how would you rank some of these tight ends for fantasy? We know Bowers is number 1, but if it was for fantasy purposes only, obviously what we talked about before with landing spot is going to make all of the difference here. But just in receiving skills and what they can do with the ball in their hands, how would you rate them just on receiving skills for fantasy purposes coming up, like maybe your top 3 or 4?
Yeah, the sleeper for sure for me for fantasy would be Eric Gall, because if he is this, I mentioned him with the black box with the health stuff. I don't care about the ACL from last year. That's with the modern technology, he's going to be fine from that. It's the back thing from the year before. That we don't know about. It seems like there was some disagreement about whether he should even have that and whether he could keep playing that season. So that makes me, and then he was back immediately for the next season at Iowa and played awesome. So it's like, they don't tell us, right? Like, right. I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night either, so I don't have opinions on it beyond that. But because of all that stuff, anyway, the situational. I put him tight end 3. And if I knew that on my board, and if I knew that, again, like if he didn't have, if the team's medical personnel were comfortable with the back, he would have been tight end 2 on my board. The receiving utility with him is the thing that carries the day. And that's what you've seen with him. It was at Michigan the 2 years before that at tight end factory. And then last year he was going into the Sam Laporta role before he ends up tearing the ACL, and was doing very well at that up until that point. So sort of star-crossed. We thought he was going to go back to campus. He decided he would enter the draft, which is why his stock is sort of up in the air, and we don't know some of that stuff. But he would be the sleeper guy for guys to keep track of. Sanders is interesting. Sarkisian used him so well. And the thing with Sanders is not an inline guy at the next level. He's got to be the big slot, lacks play power, a little bit smaller. I compare him to Gerald Everett. The thing that I liked about the usage that Sarkisian did with him, it's the thing that is good about, he tested disappointing, of course, Jatavian, but the thing that he tested well with, the two things, it was the speed and the split, right? The other stuff is what he struggled with. But it wasn't a huge surprise when you go back to his film, because the straight line stuff down the seam, and then the other thing that Sarkisian did well with, using the other receivers, we were talking about Adonai Mitchell, but also Worthy, terrified defenses. You were able to scheme Sanders into situations where Ewers could hit him on the hands in space against ancillary coverage guys. That was the other time where Sanders was dangerous, because he gets straight up and down in the field. He starts gobbling up yak real quick. He's not going to break tackles, and certainly he didn't at college. He's not going to at the NFL level. But boy, can he start gobbling up the yak real quick when he gets north and south, because the speed thing is the thing with him. If he has a clever offensive play caller in a good situation, speaking to that with the receiving, the fantasy stuff, that's where he plays up. Sennett's just a heck of a player all the way around. I comped him to Sam Laporta. You guys know that I loved him last process. He is going to be fantasy relevant. Those would be the guys that I would toss out there at the top. The other guys for fantasy aren't the best. Like AJ Barner, I love as a NFL prospect because of the value he brings to an NFL offense. I think he's going to start for a long time, but he lacks speed. He is, so in the receiving game, it's just the check down type stuff. So for fantasy guys, I would look elsewhere with that. Cade Stover has some element of intrigue there as far as that goes. Like that's the foot that he leads with. He has very good hands. Cade Stover's got awesome hands, and he will break some tackles after. I love his. He tries to break.
Could be the JJ McCarthy of tight ends, because Ohio State, you have so many good wideouts, you don't need to throw to the tight end.
Yeah, he tries to break people's chins too. He like sometimes does a berserker thing. But Stover, he's another and then the one other dude that I'd toss out that's intriguing that will be a potential sleeper at the next level is Dallin Holker. People are going to overlook him because he's small, he's old, and he's not fast. But like what he is the H-back dude that will shift around. Do you guys remember Bo Scaife?
Well, of course I remember Bo Scaife.
Yeah, going back. But
how about Chris Cooley?
Yeah, or Chris Cooley is. Yeah, I like that call out. Dallin Holker has, so he suffers physically from that stuff, being on the smaller side and then lacking the speed. He has one genetic quirk, though, that very much helps his game that nobody talks about. He has ludicrously long arms. And the reason this is so important to his evaluation is he has good hands and good ball skills. And all he's going to bring you is that utility. That's what he is. He ain't going to block for you. You're not putting him in line. So the fact that he has this long catch radius and he is the clear guy that goes out fully extends and attacks the ball, it has this effect of making him, along the route when he's out in space, bigger than he is, in terms of that, right? Like he's going to go out and get the ball. So it makes him harder for the other guy to come around, slap the thing away, and make a play on it. I think Holker...
He's a motor guy too, isn't he, Holker? Motor.
Oh, it plays very hard. Yeah, like a glue guy, type like you're going to shift them around and do different stuff like that. And he can occasionally pick a guy off in space. He's not the best blocker, but the space thing, the smaller defenders. But for fantasy guys, especially in PPR, he's not going to give you the explosive stuff, but very much like Bo Scaife, who caught 40, 45 balls a season for a little bit there. That's what I see with Holker. If he finds a nice spot, the two guys, lastly, that I would shy away from fantasy for people out there that you have been told by maybe other folks have been very high, and you might have heard a lot about them because of their testing profiles. I don't like Theo Johnson from Penn State, who tested as one of the great testing tight ends that we've ever seen, 6'6", 259, 99th percentile athlete. I comp him to Albert O from Mizzou, who reminds me so much of Albert O coming out.
Another guy we all missed on too. We were excited about that profile, and he didn't do anything.
I don't want to toot my own horn. I was right about Albert O.
You were, yeah.
And Drew Lock as well coming out, because I watched a lot of that Mizzou team, and Albert O, it was all the straight line thing. If Theo Johnson ends up being a better receiver in the NFL, or let me put it this way, the way I would advocate for his NFL offensive coordinator, only north-south stuff. And at Penn State, they had the most risk-averse passing offense of all time because Drew Allar appears to be a bust, and then they're using Kiggle, but they would do all these short throws to Theo, and he wasn't like, he caught some of those balls, it's just the very short sort of stuff. But the weird thing is for this guy who's enormous and has a great profile, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt of that, of like, sure, seam stretcher potentially at the next level. He didn't get to do that because they don't let Allar throw downfield or do anything like that. So sure, theoretically, but it's like, why did Johnson never break any tackles in college? Even though he got the opportunity, he got all these balls. Like, he wasn't good after the catch. He didn't break tackles. Like, he didn't do the Sanders thing of like, even the running after the catch, like in space, like there really is. And he's a horrific blocker as well. He was a late bloomer guy because Theo Johnson is from Canada, and he was like a zero. He wasn't going to go to college till before his senior year, blows up at a camp, because very much like his process this year, the athletic testing, that's when he got onto the recruiting deal. And then, people started offering him whatever. I'm concerned about the profile because of all these different things. Needs to be used differently for sure, but I would shy away from him. The other dude that I would definitely shy away from is Jared Wiley, that some people put very high. Was a fifth-year guy, did absolutely nothing his first 4 years at TCU on teams that were way better. This past year on a dumpster fire TCU team, he caught some balls, and so people are excited about that based on that and the fact that he is 6'6", 249 with a 93rd percentile athletic score. So some people will now put him as a top 5 tight end in the rankings, and then fantasy players get excited about that. You see the catches, you see that sort of stuff. There's a couple issues with him. He's an even worse blocker than Theo Johnson is. I don't know if I've seen a worse blocker, like a more disinterested one, just doesn't absolutely care about it. And then take a look at the profile of those catches that he had last year in that dumpster fire TCU team. They were all very short dump off stuff. They never sent him downfield whatsoever. Even Theo Johnson got sent downfield a little bit more than Wiley. And Theo Johnson had multiple years of it. Wiley, it was just the 1 year. All these stuff within 5 yards, or a chunk of it was even behind the line of scrimmage. It was manufactured touch stuff. And by the way, Wiley broke like no tackles, like even less than Theo Johnson did. So it's like a station-to-station manufactured touch tight end. You can't do stuff with him downfield. Categorically cannot block. The thing with him of the athletic profile and the catches, it's irrelevant. They're not going to lead to yards at the next level. There is no proof of concept that he can run routes. And I'll just tell you right now, he ain't blocking even a Twitter troll going forward.
I love it. I love it. And Thor, we know you're busy. You're fresh off of an appearance with Colin Cowherd, right? So we appreciate you jumping on the show and talking some prospects with us. And Thor is a very, very busy man, but please check out his top 500 on FantasyPros, and you can find him on the Twitter at ThorKU. I know you have way more shows to do, so please enjoy the process here. The big work is done. It's all cruising and talking now, so enjoy it, and we will see you on the FantasyPros YouTube channel for the NFL draft this week. So appreciate you coming on. And remember, you can follow Fitzy and I at Fitz_FF and myself at Bogman Sports. And we'll see you guys next week. Take it easy, everybody. Actually, we won't see you next week. We will be off because of the draft. So we will be back in 2 weeks. So we will see you guys then. Take it easy, everybody.